Aloha everybody. So we're just going to get started in a little bit, and we're going to continue on from what we were doing yesterday with the Instagram Live, going over applications to the CNM Tao or the Wing Chun dummy forms, and as well as you can also ask any questions regarding Jikado martial arts or whatever.
We're fully aware that many of you might not have been there yesterday as well. So if we work on the CNM Tao, we'll review some of the key concepts and introduction to that from yesterday, so that if you just tuned in today for the first time, it won't be obtuse, it'll be clear what we're doing. Also, if anyone has a very specific question, then you should ask that at the beginning so that we have time to address it. And if anyone's feeling generous and wants to support the channel and the work we're doing with whatever that special thing is called, what is it called?
Super chat. So like YouTube has super chat, so we do these lives for YouTube and Instagram, but YouTube specifically has the super chat ability. So if you don't know what that is, in the chat you can see a little $ thing that actually helps donate to the cause of making new content and also doing these lives, because as the gym gets busier, we are having more paying clients and students, so we are still giving the same time slot, and we're just asking if you would be willing to donate the time, some of that to us as well for giving the time. We want to keep doing these because I think it's good for building the community on YouTube, and also giving you guys information, especially connecting with the audience, asking questions back and forth and creating discussions, or even just live training where you have kind of like a class setting where you have to come and commit to a time slot that we're also committing to as well. We're doing these like a live video where it's not just a video I just made up and you can watch it all the time, you know, that kind of thing. We're actually giving you the same time, and we're all doing this at the same
And you're getting 2
moment.
for 1. So
Right. 2 for 1.
if you were gonna hire us as a coach at UFC gym, right, it would be quite a bit for one coach, much less 2.
Right.
So the ratio is quite good for you, and we do really appreciate it. So if anyone out there is willing to help sponsor today, then whatever question you have always takes priority. So we'll always give priority to the people that support us. I've not forgotten a couple weeks ago that Tony's question ended up being the focus of the entire lesson, because he was very generous that day. We got enough for not only our milkshake that we like, but lunch even, thanks to Tony, who sponsored the stainless steel straws that we were teaching how to use those for self-defense. So we really do appreciate those of you out there who help support the channel and help make it possible for us to provide this separate time in these lessons for you. So if anyone does have a question, please ask right away so that we can give proper attention to those questions. If you don't have any questions, then we'll go back to what we were going over yesterday. So
One of them, I saw something really quick as it was going up.
okay.
Fear of a street fight. I think you were saying that as a question. If not, you're just making a statement about fear of a street fight. Either way, I thought it was an interesting comment. So
Well, especially now, because right now we live in a very spooky time, right? Regardless of which side of the argument you're on, it's still a higher likelihood of asocial violence. And what is asocial violence? Okay, so social violence is we know the other person and there's some kind of a problem. I took his parking space and he's mad, or he hit on a girl I was dating and I'm mad, or whatever it is, right? So then that goes like this. It escalates. Depending on how you handle it, it can escalate. Asocial violence is when there's nothing personal. That means you have a gang outside a liquor store, and they are saying to themselves, for the initiation of the new gang member, okay, the third person that comes out of the liquor store, we're going to jump him, beat him up, and film it. And so then there's nothing you can say that'll stop that fight from happening, because it's not about you, it's not personal. Now, right now in the world, we have all of this violence and rioting and everything everything going on related to the frustration from the COVID-19 global pandemic and also to the social injustice of racial tension, right? And with that, regardless of which side of that argument you're on, you could find yourself in a bad situation where it's not your fault, but you end up in something. I'll give you an example. People are in traffic and it's very slow, and then there's protesters coming along, hitting the cars or punching your windshield or trying to provoke you. They might come up and ask you questions, this and that. So that's a legitimate concern. And I'm choosing my words carefully because I don't want to choose fear as a word. I'd rather say, okay, fear is an impulse, but we want to convert that impulse into courage. So the concept is fear can make you freeze and lock you up so that you can't do anything, you can't defend yourself, especially if you're generally a kind person, right? So even though Sifu Nate's been doing martial arts his whole life, when I met him, he was a very, meek would be the biblical word, like humble, kind, quiet, kind of non-confrontational person. So even if you have skills, your personality, in a way, right, was not putting up a defense for you. So you don't intend to, but you're almost inviting the bullies of the world to choose you as a victim, right? As where if you have a more forthright presence, then you don't get pre-selected, right?
Or if you look just crazy, then maybe that'll preemptively
True.
make people not want to target you. If you
It's
look
also hard to
insane.
make friends that way. Hi, I'm Sifu Kai. Nice to meet ya. Right? You know? Hi, I'm Crazy Shorthand Man. I got one long hand, and my other hand just waves at you. Give me some candy. Anyway, yeah, if you seem really crazy, then that can preempt a fight. Right?
One of my other teachers did that actually before. He just acted nuts, and the guy was like, maybe I don't want to do this.
Yeah, depending on the circumstances, that could work. So in addressing your question though, fear can be a good thing if it inspires you to actually do something about it. So in other words, you feel the natural emotional feeling of not feeling secure in your environment, feeling like you could be vulnerable, right? And so the training can then help build you up, not just so that you're more able to deal with potential real situations, but so that internally you're dealing with those fears, right? Because then instead of fear paralyzing you and freezing you, fear becomes like cat whiskers or an antenna that lets you know that there's something you need to have a higher awareness of so that you can balance yourself, so that you can get in control of the situation. So does that sort of make sense? So in other words, without any training, there's an indignance and a questioning that happens.
Right, and awareness being the key word there, because awareness is what we first train in order to avoid the situation in itself before it could happen. So intercepting the problem before it could happen with the awareness, and if you are attacked in that sense, the awareness to react is what we're talking about in that sense, as well as you're getting into the fight. And the awareness to also overcome the fear or channel the fear into a different way that's more proactive instead of freezing up, as you were saying.
And part of your awareness is internal. So you come across a situation and that inspires a feeling. And don't have a right-wrong judgment on the feeling. Instead, have an awareness of the feeling so that you can do something about it. I'll give you an example. If I'm hassling him for no reason, he might naturally, without any training, go, well, why is this guy mad at me? I didn't do anything. And he starts asking himself all these questions out of the indignance and ignorance of why this is happening, right? But that doesn't actually solve the problem. If his mind is frozen in, why me? I'm a nice person. I didn't do anything. If his mind is frozen in that, then he's unable to actively respond to the problem. Flip that, and that awareness instead of asking yourself questions of what the other guy's thinking, instead ask yourself questions about what can I do to avoid or prevent this from escalating. So, because trying to figure out why someone's crazy is difficult. A good friend of mine made me laugh for like maybe 5 minutes straight, right? Because I was trying to figure out why this one particular person was so crazy. And you know this person.
Okay.
We're not going to talk about them, but anyway, I was trying to figure out what is making this person so crazy. And my other friend said, well, you can't reason with crazy. It was the simplest thing, but it made so much sense. In other words, instead of trying to figure out why this guy was always talking to himself and out of nowhere would be angry and like want to attack somebody, instead of trying to figure out what's making him do that when I'm not his psychiatrist or whatever, instead, my friend had a very good point. Well, you can't reason with crazy, so instead pay attention to when this person's acting like that and just give them space and avoid them, because there's nothing I'm going to be able to do that's going to solve that problem. So I just need to be aware of it. So now this is also true when you're out and about, right? If you see somebody in a restaurant that is angry and out of nowhere when the person comes to take their order, they're already mad, then if it was me, that's an opportunity to potentially change seats, right?
Yeah.
If I'm right next to that person, right? Because I don't really want a problem. Or I'm also taking note of that person if it doesn't make sense to move, so that I can already know that they could become a problem. And then that way I feel more comfortable knowing that I've already identified the threat, and then I make a plan on what I can do if this or that happens. So you always want to be ahead of the problem and be proactive versus reactive, which, considering that you're watching this channel and the t-shirts we're wearing, that's an intercept. You want to intercept your fear. You want to think of it that way. Your Jiku no is not just way of the intercepting fist, it's way of the intercepting thought, right? So you want to be ahead of things like this. Whatever makes you naturally afraid, I would actually write that down. So this is an exercise that I did a long time ago. I went over all the things that potentially were big problems for me. So you have the different techniques you learn in a class when you're a kid, right? The self-defense techniques or whatever. Some of them I wasn't 100% sure how well they would work. Other ones I felt like there was a gap, like this particular problem that I ran into in school wasn't being addressed. So then I'm thinking, okay, also rules of engagement, like force continuum. So in other words, in a class you might have this thing where, oh, if 3 guys surround you, then you do this and you sidekick and da-da-da-da. But in a real situation in 6th grade, you don't really want to be the first one to throw out all these kicks and things, because then now it's your fault. You're going to the vice principal's office. What you want to do is create a we agree to disagree détente situation where the bullies no longer pre-select you at recess. So that's not addressed in the class. And so that's a valid question for you to ask your instructor. Hey, what do I do when this happens at school?
Right.
So a big part of that, believe it or not, is changing how you see these situations. Do you react from things that you perceive as scary by freezing up? Do you react by things you perceive as scary by getting angry? Because that happens too. You can push someone's insecurity button even in conversation, and then they get mad at you for some reason. And that's because you don't know it, but you've pushed their button, right? That you've triggered them. That happens a lot right now in 2022. We don't know it, but some of our friends and family and acquaintances and coworkers might be very polarized, like super left wing or super right wing politically, and so you might say something innocent that sets them off. So it could be very innocent, right? Like in Hong Kong, there's the statue of Bruce Lee, right? You show that to the wrong person right now. Oh, here's Sifu Nate with the Bruce Lee statue, and the person goes, "Statues? I want to knock down statues." Right? You're like going, but it's Bruce Lee. He didn't do anything bad.
Right. Tony, also the one who actually commented last time, he said that That's actually one of his things that he's training was how to control himself and not get angry and just go right to the violent thing. Which is, yeah, sometimes it's just training within your own body. It could be the other person, could be even you struggling with the same problem, to calm yourself and calm your mind to act rationally instead of irrationally.
Oh, well, Tony, we so appreciate you from 2 weeks ago. Absolutely.
Yes.
And, Nate hasn't had lunch yet. Just kidding, Tony. But anyway, so one way to do this is to desensitize triggers. Now, that sounds crazy, but what you need is somebody that you feel like you can trust to start the process with you. I'll give you an example. Because there are physical triggers, there are mental triggers, there are emotional triggers, right? And there are spiritual triggers. But on a simple basis, let's say a physical trigger, right? So one thing that used to bug me a lot was people that talk to you while touching you by pointing at you and poking you. I really thought that was rude and it bothered me. Okay? So for example, if I'm doing this to him, well, I said this and you said you were going to be there at 2 o'clock. Now that drove me nuts. I really didn't like it when people poked me, right? And then one of my teachers, Professor Wally J., who was friends with Bruce Lee, but in high school camp, it was one of the examples that he taught, right? So if Nate's poking my chest like this, Professor J would say, okay, well, I'm going to capture the finger and bend this finger back, right? And now he's very vulnerable, right? And then if I want to, I can switch this up and say, let's go for a walk, now that I've got his finger, right? So now here's the thing. In the high school mindset, I couldn't wait to do that to somebody. I'm thinking, the next time somebody does this to me, right? The next time somebody does this to me, I'm going to intercept that finger and lock it down and do this technique, right? And there are tons of these. There's like a whole bunch that he taught, right? Very cool stuff. And it was so cool, really, that Bruce Lee liked it. And when we were in Seattle, Sigong Taki Kimura, Bruce Lee's best friend, and his son, Sifu Andy Kimura, actually taught a couple of Wally J's techniques because they found their way into what became Jeet Kune Do through their friendship of Wally J and Bruce Lee. But my point is this, I started practicing this with the meanness. So in other words, when you're in the class, your partner is being very nice. I'm just like this, and he slowly does the move to me, and I tap, and that's it, right? But what I needed, Tony, to get over this was I needed to have friends that were bigger and stronger than me actually do it in an insulting way. Meaning, instead of just being nice and going like this, I needed them to be like, what, and like poke me like a woodpecker to where I would almost get mad. And then the thing is, my job was to not get mad. So in other words, my job was to take that without getting angry and without getting afraid, and then after receiving several of them, I would flow into the technique with slow, controlled grace, meaning no anger, no injury potential. So I'm taking, go ahead and woodpecker the heck out of me. He's gonna poke a hole in these nice t-shirts. That's how, you can hear it in my voice that he's really dinging me, right? And instead of getting mad, now at this point you can hear in my voice, I'm actually getting calmer and nicer until I'm thinking, as a disciple of Jesus Christ, I love you, and I realize you're reaching out to me because you're hurting, and I don't want to hurt you. So at some point, just so that you listen to me, I'm going to gently say, please don't poke people, okay? But by the time I actually do it, he poked me maybe 20 times. So then, I don't know if you can see that, but initially, it starts with me going like this, and then I go from being angry to being irritated to being patient, like why is this person poking me, to being compassionate, maybe something's wrong with them and they need my help, right? So I'm going down this evolution of trying to be the better person while I'm getting, this is really kind of a good topic. I mean, thank you, Tony.
And actually,
really a good question.
Those are two dualistic things we talk about all the time, anger and fear. You respond to one or the other. And the first one was fear, yes, how you deal with fear. and know how to deal with anger, right?
Yeah, because anger is definitely a thing, especially now in the example that we just gave where actually I'm the bigger guy. So if someone smaller than me is poking me, let's say it was a child, right? Let's say a teenager's poking me. I can't exactly annihilate them because I'm an adult and they're a teenager. So I need to be the better person with this, right? And in that case, with a child, I probably wouldn't put them in the lock. I would just dissipate that at some point and not let them poke me. So, because the instinct without the training would be to retaliate, meaning like this. He's poking me and I'm like, hey, don't do that. How does it feel to you? Right? So that would be going from anger. Going from fear would be, ow, you're hurting me, right? I mean, so none of those is going to be helpful to you. So it sounds crazy, but think of it this way. When I used to teach swimming to kids, some kids were afraid. So we would sit them on the edge of the pool, and then I would put a sponge in the water, and then I would pour the water on my own head. I'd hold the sponge over my head and go, wah, waterfall, wah, and the kids would laugh, right? And these are like preschool kids, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'd ask them if they want to try, if that's what they want to try. And then they would do it, and now they're in control. It's not a surprise, right? They're choosing when the water is falling on them, right? And then they're laughing and having fun. And then I get in the water, and I do it to myself in the water, and then I'm like, now you see me, now you don't. And I'm dunking myself under the surface of the water. Then, sooner or later, they want to try that too. It becomes fun, and I make a show out of it. And then I do the same thing and blow bubbles, which kind of hard to show you that right now, but I can try. Bubble, 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 bubble. Anyway, you get the idea. But it's a crawl, walk, run to help you get there. And in the journey, like Kung Fu, the meaning, right, is skill cultivated through effort. So in your journey as a martial artist, as a human being, in many areas of life, there are Achilles heels that we have. There are weaknesses that we perceive in ourselves that we need to build up. I just had someone who wrote me today and then called me about training, new client who already has previous training, which is a great achievement, but they perceived some things that they wish they were better at in their overall ability as a martial artist, as well as wanting that renewed interest. So as a lifelong martial artist, sometimes you kind of thirst for something new to inspire you to continue your journey to the next level. And so I'm looking forward to training with this person. They seem like they're going to be a great student because they're aware of that within themselves. They're aware of that process. And this is also true with your question. So in terms of anger and fear, in terms of being able to improve in that, it's a step-by-step process. That also is something you deal with sparring, right? Yeah. Because it's easy to get mad at somebody or to get mad at yourself if they catch you, right? You're sparring, maybe you thought you were at this level and the other person was at this level, but then they keep catching you, right? And so then you realize that they're better than you thought, or you're mad at yourself. Maybe you slacked off and your abilities have fallen off a little bit, because martial arts can be a perishable skill where if you don't keep it up, your ability might diminish a bit. So that can happen. But instead of using that to be mad at yourself for sucking, right? Or instead of using that to be afraid of the other person hurting you, you need to see that as an opportunity to grow, to get better. Because if you don't pressure test it, you don't know if it works. Right. So you need to pressure test it, right? Otherwise you're in this like fantasy land where if you only practice in the air and never touch anybody, then the first time you get hit, oh my gosh, is that a rough reality? What you want is a controlled condition where you get past these questions. So in other words, is his first reaction, ow, that hurts, I'm scared of you? Is his first reaction, that's pissing me off, now I want to hit you back, right? You want to get past that. You want to get past both of those, right? Where when he hits me, right, I'm going, thank you. Because I can see three ways to say thank you. He hits me, boom, I'm reminded that I'm alive. I'm not dead if I felt pain, right? He hits me, now he's improving my ability to defend and respond, right? He hits me, now I anticipate where he's aiming and I deflect it, so I'm proactive. Or he hits me and I hit him first, right? Like, so there's like so many things I can do, but I can't do any of them without his help, without that live feedback, right? So does that kind of make sense? Because this is a good training lesson emotionally for Sifune to ask himself, what does he feel? Like, bang, does he feel, ow, that hurts, I'm afraid of that? And so then if that's the case, then the second time I do it, he'll sheepishly move back. Like, you can exaggerate that, right? Like, ow, right? Or does it make him mad, right? Boom, and then he lifts up his hand, he wants to hit me, right? Okay? Or is it what it's supposed to be, which is feedback for your training, for you to grow? Meaning, he has multiple choices in the moment he gets hit, right? If he wants to show he's a tough guy, he can put up a wall, right? Just be like, so he's showing that he's strong, he can take it, right? Sometimes that can work, by the way, because the other person goes, wow, you're tough, I don't want to hit you again. And then he can also, if he realizes that it's a lot of force and that he won't be able to sustain a second one, then he'll make an adjustment to make it hard for me to hit that place twice. In other words, without the feedback, he won't even know this. So now maybe I've hit him in that exact spot on Bruce Lee's ear on the shirt. So now on the second one, he just rolls his shoulder and nothing happens, right? On the third one, maybe he lifts his bong and I don't even land. On the fourth one, the other hand, right, threads from behind, right? And now he's escalating his skilled response. You kind of follow me? So instead of the old Jim Carrey thing of Dumb and Dumber, you want to go from smart to smarter. I just made that up right now. It's pretty good though. I like that idea. So smart to smarter says that when I hit him, the first time, whatever happens naturally without training is what he does. So I hit him, boom, right? Without training, that's what happens. Second time, he over-exaggerates the fear response, right? Third time, he over-exaggerates the puffed up chest anger response, right? Then he's going to add the retaliatory response. That other hand's going to come up to hit me, right? Okay? Now that he's gone through that, he can let go of it. Does that make sense? I have to go through all the negative stuff, the fear, the anger, the retaliation, get over it. Because then, only then, will he be composed, relaxed, and skilled enough to actually start employing strategy and tactics here. So then he can roll the shoulder, no, just the shoulder. So, yeah, just the shoulder, because that's the key to the bong. Now the bong, okay, yes. Now bong the lop, okay. You see that? See that? And now bong the lop to actual counterattack. Okay, you see? So that makes more sense than if we only practiced the look cool thing. The look cool thing is what we just did. But if that's where I started, I feed him and he goes bong to here, right? And then I do it again, and then I do it again, right? That's great. The problem is in the real situation when someone goes, what? Now he didn't get to do his cool move because he didn't get past the anger or the fear. You got to be able to go through that ring of fire to evolve, to become the full potential of who you are. Does that make sense? I can't execute the cool move under stress if in that moment I'm angry or afraid. I have to come from a higher place of love and courage. So you want to have love for your creator, love for your family that would miss you if you like died in this fight. You want to have the courage to protect and care for those that you're responsible for, right? And you also have to love yourself in terms of the potential of who you can be. If you give up on yourself in the beginning, you've already lost. So in order to do that, you have to get through that ring of fire. You have to get through the anger and the fear and not be angry or afraid. It sounds crazy, but I put tons of time and effort into training him and all of my students into getting rid of these kinds of insecurities, which are, you can't pretend they don't exist. All of us come into the world with this type of natural reaction. And depending on how you're raised in your family environment, it can be accentuated, right? So in other words, let's say you have a particularly good and loving home where both parents care for you and they have a good relationship with each other. That's good for your internal self-esteem, but then it can be bad for your ability to deal with bullies in the real world because you grew up in this loving, kind environment and now you're at school and bad stuff happens and it can freak you out. Now flip that and you grew up under the worst conditions. You're missing one of your parents, or you grew up in foster care with no parents and you're always having to survive and I feel like everyone's out to get you. Then it can be hard to let that guard down and really be able to truly feel. That can also be a disadvantage in a fight because then you're less receptive because your wall's up so strong that you can't receive information. So that's part of the touch sensitivity that's inherent in this particular martial art. If he and I are in the reference position, right? And we can play this both ways. So if I'm this loving guy, right? Then as Nate comes into his attack, right? I'm like, oh, please don't hurt me, keep attacking. Oh, please don't hurt me, attack me however you want. Oh, please don't hurt me because, I'm a nice person. I don't really want to hurt you. This is a beautiful thing for me to do. Of course, I'm going to be defending for years, right? Because I've got no response. Now, flip that to, I grew up rough and tumble, and so when he bridges, I'm like, right? I overreact with this like fury of violence and anger, and maybe he was just like, but Sifu, I just wanted to practice Lapsao, So, does that make sense? You have something you want to add to that?
No, it's good. I just wanted to say that thanks again, Tony. He actually did sponsor $10 about $7 our US, I think. And he did encourage you guys to donate as well if you can. This is something we donate our time to as well. So thanks again, Tony, for the super chat. If you guys want to know what you do to that, it's at the bottom of the live chat. You can push the $sign and you can put in whatever amount you want and support the live stream here so that we can also keep doing these. But again, thanks, Tony. Thanks for encouraging others to do that. And you always have good questions. So I'm hoping that you always continue to enjoy these lives and that they're at least helping you and other people, and that you even so, you're helping to influence the world in a way too, so that donation is not just to us, but it's actually your fellow martial artists in the live as well. So
mahalo nui loa, Tony. She ni kap kun kap. Domarigatou gozaimashita. Really appreciate it, bro. Thank you. So hopefully that helps answer your question in terms of I can't address anger or fear unless I own it. It can't be some imaginary faraway thing. You need to work your stimulus response to not get angry. Whatever it takes to get you there. And that's why it's a crawl, walk, run. Like in grappling, it can be very claustrophobic, right? When someone else is all over you. So in this, it can be like you're surrounded by 80 billion mosquitoes if the other person's not good at this close range, right? The average person is not going to be able to look at the camera and talk while someone who's as skilled as Nate is attacking, right? It's going to feel like they're getting overwhelmed by angry bees. So part of it is I have to own that. So the third iteration I wanted to show you, the first was I'm coming from kindness, but I'm only reacting, right? I'm not able to do anything. Then the other one was I'm coming from anger, right? And so I was immediately overdoing it. If I'm coming purely from fear, then it's a very one-way street, meaning he comes in with this attack and I'm like, no! And he just keeps hitting me. And I'm like, mommy, help me! Right? Okay? So, okay, that's not good either. So what I want to be able to do is under pressure, turn lemons to lemonade. Now, I'm gonna show you what that is, and I'm probably gonna get hit a lot because I'm looking at you while he's attacking me. So go ahead, he starts, I'm gonna start from fear, right? So he's hitting me. No, Mom didn't come, Daddy. Daddy, help me, Daddy. Where are you? Where's my dog? Where's my cat? Help, where's my stuffed animals? Stuffed animals come to life, right? So he keeps attacking. I'm coming from fear. Now I go from fear to anger. No, keep attacking. But see how my attacks are like big and clumsy because I'm coming from anger. So I'm taking a lot of shots, right? Now I want to go through that window, and now I keep attacking. And now I'm going from love, from aloha. So I'm not getting hurt, but I'm only defending. And then from here, I want to start transmuting to go into courage. So every once in a while, I get my shots in. Right? You see it? So totally losing coming from fear. Coming from anger, I get hits in, but I get hit a lot because I'm almost ignoring his attack, right? Coming from love, I'm stopping his attack, but I'm not stopping him. I'm just continually fending him off. When you find courage, then you have that fourth evolution where I can nullify and counter, nullify and counter, nullify and counter. You find that eye of the storm. And then the fifth level, right, is when I know I can do that and I choose to be less violent. I'll show you what that looks like. So now, I was nullifying and countering, but then I'm like, hey man, why are you trying to hurt me? So now I've eliminated the structure of the battle. And I ask him a question and try to calm him down, right? So,
right, improving the position instead of having to keep dealing with the
yes,
situation.
exactly. Improving the position. Because as long as we're both in the reference point, we both have the ability to hurt each other, right? Okay, you see it? We both have the ability to create problems for each other. Mm-hmm. So, by making the purposeful choice, hey, I could stay here and we could hurt each other, or we could reassess and go, do we really want to do this? Right? So, it's very empowering if you can find your way to this. It's not an instant thing. You can't just watch a video one day on YouTube Live and be like, okay, now I got that. You're going to have to actually go through the evolution, and you're going to have to do it with what triggers you. I'm going to have to choose it on purpose. Don't do this with dating though. Don't on purpose date the person that drives you nuts, right? Don't do it that way, right? But in terms of like getting over these types of anxieties and fears, if you can gradually crawl, walk, run so that you end up old school, my grandfather would say you build a thick skin. What he would mean was you'd get to a point where someone calling you names or messing with you didn't actually cause you to fall for it. Because he saw that as a trick, right?
It's a trick, yeah.
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 Somebody
It's
that?
baiting, yeah, so like it's almost like an attack by John Chicken-Dog. They're trying to bait you to egg you on to, okay, you can even do that as a strategy in some way. Some people use that as strategy in a bad way usually. Yeah, to try to get you to get angry and throw. Like even Musashi used it to make the guy angry. He was late on purpose.
Yes.
To make him angry.
Frustrated.
And then frustrated. Therefore, his sneak was all over the place because now he's not coming from that stance of balance and be able to initiate correctly. He was just kind of swinging in anger, and that makes your movements way wider than what they should have been, or more efficient. So that's why he was able to take him apart that way, because he was still staying calm and in control, while the other guy was just wildly swinging with probably some technique, but still yet a little bit of a tweak of anger makes that technique thrown off a bit more than normal. So yeah, that's a good one. Especially like I want to comment as well on the illustration of water, because when you get in the water, if you ever tried learning how to swim, it is like that. And we even call, like, if you just do technique, but you never actually spar, it's like dry land swimming. You never really got tested in the water. And yeah, sometimes you need to, like, in the beginning, maybe you're afraid of the water. I was afraid of the water when I started swimming, even though I live in Hawaii and we were surrounded by water. learning how to swim at the YMCA, I had to do exactly what Kai did. First, Kai was talking about going under, getting used to being under the water and not thinking I'm going to suffocate and drown and die. I mean, you have to also think in sparring, okay, I'm not going to die. I know how to protect myself. I'm going to get hit a few times. I got used to those hits. I got to toughen up a little bit, but also know how to protect myself and not just like react in a fearful way like we were talking about. And just like, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. No, you got to protect yourself and you got to fight through it, you know, so.
Some of the funnest things in life are scary in the beginning, right? So when you're a little kid, you're learning how to ride a bike. It's super scary at first. What are you doing 3 months later? Popping hills, racing your friends, all kinds of stuff, right? So it starts out scary, it ends up being fun. Surfing. You know, you don't start out trying to surf a big wave on the North Shore in Hawaii. You start out on little body surfing close to the beach with your family, and then you go up to a boogie board, then you surf small surf, and then you're working up on standing up, and then you're working on making turns, and then you slowly but surely work your way up to more powerful surf. It's the same thing with fighting. You want to be gradual enough to find your balance point, right? So for some people, it takes greater stimulus to get the reaction. For other people, not very much because they haven't experienced much violence in their life. So it kind of depends on where you're coming from, on what it takes to get you there. But you do want to push those buttons here amongst people you trust,
Right.
not have it be a surprise out there.
Right now it's a controlled environment where you can vary that intensity. And then that's where you're getting used to slowly getting attuned to the water, right? Getting slowly, what you would say, like, you know, when the hot water versus cold water, when you're putting your foot in
Yes.
it, yeah, you're acclimating. You're
Acclimating.
acclimating to the stimulus. And therefore it becomes less scary.
So this is going to sound nuts, but I've done it a lot, so I'm going to show it to you anyway, even though it's a little bit borderline crazy. So you know what the chain punch looks like, right? So if my hand is the target and Nate's doing the chain punch, right? So now watch this, okay? So now I'm closer to my face. Keep going. Okay? So you see what's happening? I'm looking at you, but I have this perception that I'm getting punched in the face. Now watch, I'm going to be even closer. Keep going. Now my back of my hand is popping off of my face where I can feel it every time he hits. Now I'm going to actually touch my cheek. See that? Now I'm having to be careful when I talk so that I catch between punches so I don't bite the inside of my mouth, right? Now here's where it gets really psycho, right? He's actually going to hit me in the cheek. Go ahead. What's up? I can take it, okay? So not everybody can handle that, right? But the idea is, before it's by surprise in a real fight or even in a sparring situation, I want to know that I'm not made of glass, that I can take these hits. And please, this is a video and I've trained a long time. Do not watch our little video and start punching each other in the face, because if you haven't practiced it, you're going to hurt something, you're going to dislocate your jaw, your neck's going to be sore.
Plus, it's a two-way skill. I'm also gradually putting the force, and it's not like wham right away.
Yeah.
It's not like
I'm not
100
saying,
miles per hour.
well, I stand here and like eat a Twinkie. Hit me as hard as you can. We're not doing that. That's an excellent point. So basically, I'm graduating my ability of having comfort under stress, and he's graduating how much actual power he's penetrating through. So depending on the person, they can take more or less. That's okay. The idea is, what I don't want to have happen is, in real life, the moment I get hit, I'm like a balloon getting popped, right? I don't want to go, I got nothing now, right? I want to be able, because in real life, there's no way I'm going to let a dude hit me 20 times like that. But the concept is, I don't want to get angry, I don't want to get afraid, right? I don't want to freeze and just become a human target. You have to be able to convert this. So he's doing me a favor. Now I know what it's like to get punched in the face, and I can work from there. And you don't have to do it the hard way like I did, right? If you look at old pictures of me, I've broken my nose 7 times, I chipped my teeth and whatever. I mean, I went at it pretty hard. And by going through everything the hard way, I learned how to not have to do that to him. Meaning, you know, like let's say you cross the Sahara Desert, and then you got lost a bunch of times and everything else, and then at the end of your journey, you figured out that there was something called a map and GPS, and you could have had an easier journey, right? But you did it the hard way, and now you have a friend that wants to do it, and you can equip them with what you learned to make their journey easier. Does that make sense? So if you think about this, Sifu in Chinese is like father, right? What parent doesn't want their child to be happier and more successful than they are? And by successful, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about contentment, being a good human being, being someone that makes the lives of other people better, being a moral person. That's my definition of success. It's not based on what kind of car you got or how much you got in the bank. I couldn't care less about that. It's, you know what, developing yourself into a quality human being. That's really the true inner journey of Jeet Kune Do. You have some thoughts on that?
Actually, I was thinking about the waves crashing in when we're talking about surfing. Sometimes you are going to get hit by those waves, and sometimes you're going to get rolled a few times, and sometimes you'll actually learn the skill of dipping under the wave or going over it before it gets to there. So sometimes before the waves are crashing over, I'm able to make it and paddle my way over that wave before it crashes over. If I'm in that knock zone, then I'm going to get tumbled and I'm going to have to roll it. But I'm going to have to, you know, I'll survive, I'll come back. And I've already experienced that. Now that next time it's not as scary. But if I can also preempt it the other way, as it's crashing, I dip under the wave. If you're surfers out there, you know what I'm talking about. You're going under and deeper where there's no crash. You're underneath the water now. And the water is your shield and also your way to propel yourself back up to the surface. So it's in a way very, very like Tai Chi like that way.
And you're riding that energy.
Riding the energy, exactly.
When you're ahead of a wave, right? You're riding the energy ahead of the wave. When you're ducking under it, this crash, that energy is propelling the rise of the next wave, and so you can rise up behind the back of the wave. So here's the face, you're riding that. You come up on the other side, and you're each time, as Sifu Nate mentioned, you're becoming more and more courageous. So this is the thing, it's a choice, it's a decision. The opposite of fear is love. The opposite of anger is courage. If you choose love and courage, you'll always be better off than if you choose anger and fear. Those of you who've tuned in with me before know that I say this all the time. No good decision is made out of fear or anger. Good decisions are made out of courage and love. So be the aloha you want to see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. Have the qualities you wish you would see in others, and they will be reflected over and over and over again. That is a wonderful way to eliminate anger and fear out of your life, is to be courage and love in everyone else's life. Because human beings, we're social creatures, we can't help it, right? So you become more like the people that you spend quality time with. So that's why it's important in your life, whether it's us once or twice a week on here or whomever you feel helps you. It's important to spend quality time with others that help you become the best you that you can be. So if you have a particular friend that somehow when you're around them you laugh more and you see more hope in the future, that's a good thing. You want to cultivate that. If on the other hand, every time you're around certain people you get more angry or frustrated, you want to diminish that. I have to do right in my life to give myself the capability and the energy to be able to give to you. If I'm constantly dealing with negativity on purpose, that's not helpful. So one of the smartest things my brother ever said, since this is a new experience for Sifu Nate, but my brother said, marriage, for example, can be either the best or the worst thing that can ever happen to you. That commitment can be very freeing for your soul to help you become the best you possible, or it can do the opposite if you're in a bad relationship where all that negativity now bounces off of you to everyone else you come in contact with. So martial arts is in a way also venal arts, right? Mars is the planet for the god of war, and Venus is the goddess of love, whatever. So we used to make jokes about this in college, and no one knew what we were talking about, right? Don't just train martial arts, train Venus arts, venal arts, whatever. Like, we were kind of saying that you have to train both sides of the yin yang, right? You have to train both sides of the core symbol because you need to be in balance. So if I'm only training, this is how I attack you, I'm not getting the full benefit if I'm not learning, this is how I don't get hit by your attack.
Right.
And that the physical thing we can demonstrate quite easily. The mental, emotional, and spiritual thing is a little bit more obtuse. It's a little bit harder to see.
Right. And then going back to the marriage thing, it is kind of like that in a sense, like that person knows you probably one of the best of anybody, and that means that your bad sides are more emphasized. So then you have to deal with that. So you have not deal with it in a way like in a bad aggressive way, but know that that's a problem. Like for me, I've had to learn a lot actually about myself and my flaws and how to not get angry about those flaws, but try to change myself in a positive way that I don't make the same mistake twice. So yes, it's relationship for marriage is very much like that. If you're in a good relationship, you are both going to point out the flaws and not just ignore them, and do it in a way that helps create peace again. So always working on yourself, acknowledging, yes, I was wrong, I did this or that. Now how do I get better, improve from there, and never make that same mistake again as best as possible as a human being. We're still going to make mistakes, but again, trying not to go back to the same problem. Just like in fighting, if I know that my hand's not coming up and I'm not blocking, I better block next time, right?
And that's a very valid analogy, which is part of the unique gift, really, specifically for Jeet Kune Do anyway, because the philosophy is so much a big facet of the whole entire journey. Meaning the physical art is really a conduit for the internal development, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So he makes an excellent point. The people you're close to, a best friend, a spouse, they're going to be reflections of your best and worst selves, right? The parts that they love about you, that they embrace, and the parts that occasionally irritate them. But because of the close relationship, they don't hide it from you, right? Someone you're not as close to might not tell you to your face what you're doing that drives them nuts. So on the other hand, someone you're very close to will. And sometimes what irritates you about someone else is a very strong reflection of yourself. In other words, someone might have a particular habit that makes you upset, but part of the reason why it makes you upset is because of something you do. It's a reflection of your own faults. And you have to be open to this because it's so easy in regular life to ignore these things. But as Sifu pointed out, he can't ignore that, right? So use that as an analogy. In life, he can't over and over and over again get clicked in the jaw, right? At some point, you have to be able to go through that. So that was kind of the point of the stress inoculation of, okay, I have a flaw, he's hitting me in the side of the face, right? Boom, boom. Okay, so now I got choices, right? I got choices. I can move so that he misses, right? I can move his hand so that I deflect him, right? Or I can hit him first because my arms are long. I mean, there's like lots of things I can do. But until I get hit in the face, I don't know the problem that needs a solution. So the hit in the face should not be mythical. It should be real so that it can be dealt with directly.
Right. Good. So we are almost at an hour now, and I'll just look at the questions again, but we might at least do the Sinamtal like we did yesterday as a ending like cool down maybe for you, and maybe explain a few things on that. But we definitely don't want to go too far. And Tony says, thanks. You guys are wonderful, really appreciate it. Honored to be here to watch your live videos. Thank you again, Tony. Thanks for appreciation. We love that you're here too. So you say that being strong means to have more control of myself. So one guy is commenting, yes, that is very true. To become strong means to be in control of your own body, your own self. Really properly plays important role. Yes, breathing does play an important role. Bruce was notorious for his bad temper. That's what he says. And like, well, yes, and
Well,
he worked
yes,
through that.
but
Yeah.
that was what drove him. Knowing that he had the bad temper as a teenager was the reason his father sent him to Ip Man's school to train Kung Fu, because he felt that it would help him. Even his boxing coach at the private school he went to in high school felt that the boxing was actually helpful in dealing with his temper, because you're getting that energy out in the ring in a controlled way versus on the street in an uncontrolled way. So think of it this way. If you know that you have a bad temper, if you only went to yoga, you're not suddenly not going to have a bad temper. You might be calmer, but when you get set off, you'll resort back to what you did before. By doing the martial arts, he's dealing with that flaw directly. He's embracing that tendency to violence, and what ends up happening is it tempers you, because there's always somebody that can humble you in some way or another. And if you look at it honestly, Bruce Lee sought those people out. He on purpose trained with somebody crazy tall that was athletic like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He on purpose trained with champions, Chuck Norris, Joe Louis, Mike Stone, guys that could potentially hurt him if they hit him hard, right? He on purpose chased adversity. James DeMille, who was a formidable guy, one of his early students in the Seattle timeframe. Bruce on purpose sought out these things because it helped him stay humble and it helped him constantly improve. And he wanted to get a hold of the emotional issue because he always had so much pent-up energy. And so, in a way, doing this helped him to calm down, right? One of my students actually told me this a long time ago. You teach what you need to learn the most. You teach what you need to learn the most. So, in other words, you know deep inside what you're lacking and what you need. And one of the best ways to improve at that is to actually teach it. So, it sounds crazy, but, like Sifu Nate, when I was little, everybody, you can be a little afraid in the surf and whatnot. And my dad was like a serious big wave Hawaiian surfer. So my brother and I, we used to get a little nervous because our father had the, okay, here you go method of teaching us how to surf. He'd take us out in the lineup and say, okay, have fun. And we'd be getting hammered, right? So
School of Hard Knocks instead of the gradual way.
Right. So that, I turned out okay in the long run, but that's because why? Because I chose to approach it a different way and to teach myself how to go gradually. So I'd ask other old timers for tips because my dad's method was killing me. So,
Sink or swim.
Right. So, I chased after it, and then it's the same thing with this kind of stuff, or with anything. I was in a plane crash, a small plane crash when I was a kid on another island, and because of that, I didn't want to be afraid of flying my whole life, so I learned how to fly. I don't teach how to fly necessarily, but the idea was I went way beyond the normal way of getting over a fear of flying, I felt like if I understood it in detail, which is really what you do if you learn how to teach something, is you learn all the little nooks and crannies of it. And so I felt if I actually learned how to fly, then when I'm on a commercial flight and I feel turbulence or I feel this or that, I'll understand what it is rather than, having a fear of like some weird thing happening.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, definitely. So yeah, that was most of the questions that we were just taking an hour.
So we might want to save it for next week, going over the form, since today, again, Tony, thanks to you, we addressed primarily a great question, which ended up becoming the lesson. And really, that is part of it, right? Is that you folks out there, you're dictating the choice of what we're going to share with you by what you ask. And that's part of the benefit of a real class or this live interaction, is that we have an idea we come to the table with if no one has any input.
Right.
But if you do have something specific, and I never dismiss a question like the one that was asked, because a large percentage of people that come to the martial arts are doing so because fear of a street fight is a real thing. You don't want to get hurt, right? So own it. You know, that's like learning how to fly was for me, if you will, or learning how to swim was for Nate. Learning how to survive the surf, or you know, a whole other topic that we touched on, relationships, because if things aren't working for you, maybe you need to learn. Maybe you need to like learn a better way of doing it. The real thing doesn't just happen automatically. So it takes hard work.
It does. Yeah, exactly. So thanks again for joining us. There was someone that was asking about collaboration. If you want to do that, just message one of us, either my YouTube or go to my Gmail, ninjanate@gmail.com, or just send me a message and we can talk about collaboration if that's what you want to do for your channel.
And please subscribe to my channel as well, Ōlohe Kai, Ōlohekai, Ōlohekai. That's my YouTube channel. I probably need to change it to something easier because no one can ever remember it. But in Hawaiian, it's like saying Sifu Kai, right? Ōlohe, O-L-O-H-E, is like the Hawaiian term for a teacher of martial arts. So, but yes, it would be a fun thing to potentially collaborate.
Right, and also there was a question again about these shirts. These are only for the in-person students. You have to come to us for that. We have to train in person. If we do a seminar somewhere, or if you come here to Hawaii, let us know. Maybe we can figure out, and you can tell us ahead of time. We'll prepare one for you. The other JKD shirts, the core system, and the five petal lotus symbols on the t-shirts below are the ones that you are able to get because they are connected to the YouTube channel. So you can pick up those shirts or tees or I think tank tops as well as sweatshirts. But for these ones, these are actually kind of special. It's reserved for certain groups that have trained with us.
It goes back to the incarnation. So when the UFC gym first opened in Hawaii, they contacted me about doing training. And very early in their initial promotion, when the gym was first opening, they were promoting Bruce Lee as part of their overall appeal. And basically, I was approached to put together a Jeet Kune Do program for them and brought in Sifu Nate to run that program at the Honolulu gym initially and now at the Kailua gym. And so this was part of that genesis, the very first Jeet Kune Do classes at UFC gym in Hawaii.
That was about 8 years ago.
It was a long time ago.
These are very legacy shirts now. Like
so then that's what this goes back to. This is old school from back to the beginning, and because of that sentimental appreciation for that genesis of getting his start really in teaching professionally, that's part of why we wear these for you, because I referred him to the gym and it became like his first professional job teaching martial arts, and so it's a special memory for us, if you will. And it
has a great quote on the back, as we keep talking about. Yeah, under the sky, under the heavens, there is but one family, right? So that's the quote about us all being just human beings, and we're all just trying to share and exchange with each other, and appreciating each other, and honoring and be respectful.
And being the aloha that you want to see in the world around you.
All right, thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time. Aloha.
Mahalo.